Again to review the sixth and last episode of season 1 of Loki. Let's see, it's been quite a ride, and let's see how this thing concludes. So the episode begins with like the MCU logo and all that stuff, and you hear audio recordings of like all the Avengers characters and all that stuff, and then you get this space-time thing, all well converting to where Loki and Sylvia are as they're about to confront, the person they call the head of the man behind all of this, who is dubbed He Who Remains, who seems to be a variant of it seems to be a merger of a character of the same name and a character who are called Immortus, who I'll get to a bit later. But anyway, but this episode's titled For All of Time Always, in which Loki and Sylvia enter the Citadel at the end of time, where they meet the Miss Minutes, the holographic clock talking thing, voiced by Tara Strong. As she reveals that the one she works for is someone called He Who Remains. And she offers them to return to their own timelines, without any of the without being pursued by the TVA. In fact, even something with a bit of a bonus with Loki being offered to that he actually wins the Battle of New York and actually kills Thanos and ends up ruling Asgard and all that stuff, has the Infinity Gauntlet, while Sylvia goes back to her childhood and have her happy life and all that stuff. However, the pair reject the offer, and she just disappears, saying that you've made your choice. So, yeah, let's see. But no, we don't see the end of Miss Minutes, as Judge Renslayer receives, information, is still looking for information from Miss Minutes, and she gives her the information that He Who Remains sent, which is not entirely what she wants, which eventually leads her to being confronted by Morbius and with the two of them accusing each other of betrayal and all that stuff. Which results in a sort of due to their friendship stuff, because there was actually a bit where Renslayer noticed the missing cup thing. Apparently, when she had tried to get security, it seems like Mobius has been working with B Hunter 15 to get these other TVA troops. I think one of them is called for time. I think one of them's called. The guest is Hunter D90, who finds Hunter B15, who reveals that Renslayer's original timeline is her being a vice principal. So it seems like most of the people in the TVA now know that they're all variants and all that stuff. So she's not getting any help there. However, a quick scuffle ensues between Renslayer and Mobius after arguing about whether or not TVA is right and stuff, is it better to have free will or just have the lie big things. However, Renslayer, after nearly being hit by one of those prune staffs, ends up teleporting to a time portal thing where she is apparently searching for free will, and that's the last we see of her, at least for this season. Anyway, Loki and Sylvia end up being greeted by He Who Remains, who is being cast by Jonathan Majors. Let's see, from what I understand, his most famous roles are The Last Black Man in San Francisco, an independent film, apparently portraying someone called Artist Freeman in the HBO television series Lovecraft Country. So, yeah. So, female Sylvia attempts to, kill him, but he uses the time pads to avoid her attacks, because apparently he knows everything that is going on. And ends up revealing the true history of what happens. He's a man from the 31st century who discovered, the multiverse and all that stuff, and interacted with various versions of himself. And for those who do not know, that this is the origin story of Kang the Conqueror, an Avengers villains who most people will probably be most likely aware of from the Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes cartoon if they watched it, which is where it happens to me. And he was apparently, for the comics, he was one of the few bad guys at the Avengers that was original to the Avengers, rather than having like Loki or like Hulk's villains or Red Skull and all that stuff, like, you know, from Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man the Wasp, Black Panther, Fantastic Four. Let's see. He was more of like an original villain, like, let's see, that was just keen to fighting the Avengers, similar to Ultron and all that stuff. So yeah. So apparently, originally the Kangs or he who remains. I'm just going to call him Kang from now on because it's much easier. Let's see. We're sort of like let's see. There's also, like, I think someone called Immort. He might also be a version of Immortus, who's like another version of Kang. But yeah. Apparently, let's see, the Kangs all work together, sharing technology, helping each other out. However, eventually some versions of Kang ended up, wanting to conquer the universes and stuff, hence, you know, Kang the Conqueror. And there was like a multiverse war between all the different versions trying to kill each other. However, this version of the one who dubs himself He That Remains eventually discovered the creature known as Alavis to use to sort out time and all that stuff, in which he did. And then it's mostly TVA propaganda at first, until like the bit where there's difference of where he became like the sort of like immortal living being, at least, or like this that kept time as itself to make sure that the multiverse doesn't crash. And all these versions of himself, you know, try to kill each other. That's why he did the timekeepers and all that stuff. Let's see. So he says that at this point, it's reaching to the pinnacle point of where he won't know what happens when he like shows like scripts of what's going to happen and all that stuff. So yeah. Let's see. So yeah, because he manages to avoid death due to all that occurs, but however, it's finally run out and all that stuff. So it depends what happens. It will just depend on the two Lokis, as they will determine whether or not to keep like this current status quo of like having them then run the TVA and all that stuff and have time kept as it is, or they kill him and causing like the multiverse and the time rifts to continue, allowing all these multiple versions of, let's see, Kang to once again start the, you know, multiverse war, if you will. Which, see, this leads to, of course, Sylvie, who was like wanting to continue like what she's been doing for her entire life, tries to kill. Let's see, decides to kill him and all that stuff. However, Loki. Let's see, however, Loki is like, you know, fearing that He Who Remains might be right, even though he might be just bored of, like, you know, keeping the timeline and all that stuff, or grow wary of it as you will. Let's see, so Loki and Sylvia crash, with Sylvia saying how she knew she couldn't trust Loki, but eventually with Loki just dropping his weapons, coming up close to her, and sort of like confessing how he doesn't really want to be a ruler and all that stuff. He just wants her to be safe, and the two eventually kiss, but she kisses him. However, then she sends him to like stealing like the He Who Remains time pad, or Kang, if you will. Sends Loki back to TVA, and then kills He Who Remains as she contemplates, and that's where the last we see her. She just contemplates what she's done as we begin to see the multiverse starting to appear and all that stuff, and all these, like, let's see, multiverse timelines, and they're appearing, which cannot be proved. Loki eventually wakes up Fritzi gets up from his thing and after complains to him what just happened to him, runs to try and find Morbius and Hunter B-15, who have witnessed seeing these multiple timelines and all that stuff, thinking that nothing can be stopped now. Loki tries to explain everything with Morbius of what they did the mistake and all that stuff. However, Morbius does not really recognize who Loki is, and he just thinks he's from another sector or something. And Loki then ends up discovers the statue of Kang/He Remains as one of the variant versions of him and all that stuff. And it seems like Loki realizes that he's now, which has replaced the Timekeepers, and he's probably now realized that he's either possibly not in his universe, or something has happened to his timeline that Morbius no longer recognizes him. That's the end of the episode. Oh boy, first off, this is not really how I was expecting. I was expecting a bit more of a clash, but although we do get a thing, but it's mostly more of a dialogue talk. I do like how at the beginning of the episode, besides the special effects with the whole universe thing, the two Lokis, or Loki and Sylvia, are offered a chance to go back to their own timelines and have things more in their favor. However, they refuse, not trusting the man who's controlling it. But speaking of the man who controls it, he who remains, Kong. As soon as I heard the whole 31st century thing, yeah, I knew it was Kong or some variant of him. And it looks like those who were predicting that he was going to be Kang the Conqueror seems to be right, because I know apparently he's going to appear in a version of him called Kang the Conqueror is going to appear in the Ant-Man and the Wasp multiverse movie, or I don't know, the third Ant-Man movie, if you will. So yeah, that's going to happen. So yeah, we're going to see a version of him in that movie, and he's going to be the main bad guy. That'll be interesting. I wonder how it'll go down. But yeah, anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So yeah, I have to admit, he really sells the role of this character. It's this sort of quirky character. It's hello there, you two. I've been waiting for you, and ooh, you can't kill me because I know what's going to happen to you. I just because this episode was very much exposition and that stuff, but which could have been very boring, except that he makes it engaging enough that you just want to tune in and listen to what he has to say and all that stuff. And what he does say is interesting, because yeah, he has the standard carrying backstory of the 31st century. He met multiple versions of himself. They tried to get along, fixing things, but eventually some of them became conquerors, like Kang the Conqueror, if you will, causing a multiverse war that nearly destroyed all of reality, it seems. So he ends up controlling the creature Eliath from the last episode. And just fixed everything. And he gives and it seems like he knows everything that's happening and all that stuff. And he even shows them in the script. It's blimey, they're really going with this whole, fate, destiny kind of thing with this thing, with the choices of Loki. But he does give them the choice of either keep the status quo or kill him. I do like this is where the two Loki Loki protagonists, regular Loki and Sylvia, sort of converge, where Loki wants to think this through in case we do start a multiverse war thing and the consequences of that, while Sylvia just wants him dead for everything that he has done to preserve the timeline, including ruining her life. And finally freeing the universe from Sylvia, from his grip, that stuff. So you get a nice of a bit of clash between the knives, daggers, sword things. I think daggers really, yeah, daggers, and then with and also the mystic powers and all that stuff with Loki trying to pull her back with it and all that stuff. So yeah, that was a nice fight. And I get that, how we finally get Loki saying that he no longer cares about controlling the being a ruler and all that stuff. He just wants Sylvia to be safe, sort of like a confession, and they do kiss. However, Sylvia ends up breaking Loki's heart by just double-crossing him and sending him back to the TVA, saying that how she's not him. So in the end, the one that Sylvia who goes I can't trust you, but it turns out Loki can truly trust her in the end. So. That's tragic, though whether or not that's the end of their romance remains to be seen, because we're going to apparently get another season of Loki. and we're probably going to see her. And then, of course, she ends up, killing He Who Remains, who doesn't seem all that upset about the choice. In fact, even seems to be smiling and just thinking like, oh boy, you've done it now. I do wonder if Sylvia does regret her actions, but I think she does from what we've seen. But anyway, speaking of like double crosses, I really like the confrontation between Mobius and Renslayer, who both are mad at each other for betraying him. Mobius mad that she tried to prune him and all that stuff. Though she figured he probably would have survived that and all that stuff. And she's mad that he double-crossed him by just following these two variants of Lokis. Since they just cause nothing but trouble. And she's just kind of like, angry that you can just trust him to try and keep everything as order and civil. So we got that, and he does try to prune her eventually, but she just escapes, and she tries to find her own destiny. I do kind of like how Miss Minute seems to be a bit more manipulative when trying to persuade the two Lokis to go to the other timeline, and only just giving Miss Minutes, Renslayer, the information that only He Who Remains wants to see. The only thing I was kind of disappointed in is not really seeing like a TVA uprising where you get TVA agents fighting each other, seeing those running their variants, ones wanting to rebel against it, and those not fighting each other, unfortunately. But yeah, I did like that we got to end up seeing that Renslayer was actually a vice principal. Or principal, I think. I think it says vice principal on the Wikipedia page, but yeah. Overall, I enjoyed this episode, and the cliffhanger, remains a cliffhanger and all that stuff, and there's no post-credit scenes because, unlike, WandaVision and, Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is probably building up to, like, for WandaVision, was for the Scarlet Witch's appearance in Doctor Strange. Well, I'm sure that the Falcon and Winter Soldier's post-credit scenes was to build up for, like, the eventual Captain America 4 movie that's been announced. All that stuff, so that'll be interesting. But here, there's no post-credit scenes at the end. So if we want to find anything out with more of Loki, we're going to have to probably wait until the second season, which I do not know when's going to happen. For all I know, it could be next year. It could be after a few more MCU films, or it could be in Phase 5. But I'm kind of hoping that it will be next year, and that Phase 4 of Loki will have Phase 4 will have a few seasons of Loki. I'm not sure how many seasons they're going to have, but they're clearly going with more than just, at least at the moment, we're going to get at least another 6 episodes, adding it to a total of 12 episodes of Loki, which, since it's the only one that's not a miniseries, I do know that the director is not going to appear, is not coming back for this one, but yeah. Overall, I give this episode a 9 out of 10. We finally end up meeting the man behind it all, which turns out to be Kang the Conqueror, which some people have finally predicted. We get the reason why he's done this, to prevent a multiverse war with like versions of himself. Ones which are going to probably appear in Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. Loki's fighting each other due to one wanting to keep, think about this, while the other just wants no revenge and all that stuff. Eventually, confession of love, kiss, but double crosses, and the double cross between Mobius and Renslayer, and the confrontation between Mobius and Renslayer, and Loki apparently ending up in a different version of the TVA. Overall, a 9 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to when we find when we get another season of Loki. In many ways, this Loki has been like the Marvel's version of Doctor Who, and I'm very curious to see what happens next. Anyway, I'm Blue Star Saber, signing off. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.